Greetings, Guardians, my name is Bife here. So, Commander Zavala has been under an immense amount of pressure since the Season of the Deep. He was the one who initially had to sell the plan of resurrecting Savathûn to Saint 14 and Lord Saladin, and he's also never been one to truly trust Eris Morn as much as Ikora does. It's worth remembering that when Eris first returned to the tower in the dark below, Zavala and the Speaker were fully convinced that she was corrupted by the darkness of the Hive. Zavala would slowly learn to trust her, but he still doesn't trust the Hive magics that she's been slowly making use of, and he doesn't much trust the fact that she's been using darkness itself either. For the longest time, Eris has been an uncomfortable reminder for the Commander that the world around him has more shades of grey than he might first have ever imagined. Not all Guardians are good. The Traveler will not serve humanity alone. The light can be used for evil, the darkness can be used for good, and Eris Morn may just be one of humanity's greatest allies. But now Eris has taken one step further than she has ever gone before, and her transformation into the God of Vengeance has prompted new questions. Zavala's world is once again about to be turned upside down. Today, I didn't just want to focus on Commander Zavala's reaction to Eris Morn's transformation, but I also wanted to focus on the potential reaction of the city and the Guardian populace as well. The Guardians have known for a long time that Eris has been a stalwart ally in our fight against the Hive, and she's more than proven herself by helping us to first dethrone Crota and then his father Oryx. But now, in this moment where she has transformed, the old fears of the old Vanguard have returned somewhat. I think it'd be inaccurate to say that Zavala distrusts Eris, but I think it would be fair to say that he is wary of the situation and is very concerned. For an understanding of how he's handling the situation, simply look into the Veiled Tithes class items. Be it a mark, a cloak, or a bond, they're all the same. The lore contained within comes from Zavala's perspective, and it tells us more of his own thoughts and gives us a little insight into the general mood of the citizens, having heard this news of a brand new Hive God from amongst humanity. Take a listen. Macabre in its brilliance. Zavala locked his office door. The furtive gesture made him uneasy, but he couldn't risk anyone coming in. The feed he was about to watch could easily be misconstrued. As it was, the city smoldered with rumors from citizens and Guardians alike. The persistent, undulating hole in the Traveler's side put everyone on edge. Hearing that Vanguard leadership was using Hive magic to fulfill a bargain put forth by the Witch Queen would undoubtedly stoke the flames of panic. Zavala leaned grimly over his desk to watch the Guardian's latest tithes to Eris Morn. It used to be simple, he lamented. We exterminated the Hive wherever we found them, and we felt good about it, justified. But in recent years, morally ambiguous situations like these had become more common, and separating friend from foe was increasingly difficult. Over the feed, Eris Morn's face lit up with fierce elation as the Guardian's tithes flowed through her. Her Hive form seemed to swell with power. Zavala knew that Eris undertook the rituals with temperance, at least for now, but he wondered how long her clarity would last. Elsie Bray's warnings had been too vivid to dismiss entirely, even after Ikora's reassurances. Zavala turned away from the feed to gaze out the window at the Traveler. The trauma puncturing its sides reminded him of the stakes, the reasons they were taking such risks. He sighed, wondering how many more compromises they would have to make before the end. So Zavala has sat in a sort of hushed and fearful acceptance of what's happening. He's no fool, and he understands that there are some terrifying stakes in this situation that require this grave consequence. He knows that defeating the Witness must take priority over everything else. However, he's also keenly aware that the people of the Lost City, civilians and Guardians alike, have been slowly but surely moving to a stance of distrust against their protectors. In the world beyond the tower, this attitude has been brewing for years now, where guardians are seen by the citizenry as imperfect and not necessarily always as defenders. Gone are the early days of the City Age when the guardians could do no wrong. First, the image of their defenders' invincibility was shattered by events such as the Great Disaster. Then the image of their incorruptible nature was slowly torn away. Whether it began with Dredgen Yor or whether it truly began with the acceptance of stasis, it has only continued to degrade. To give you all a few examples of what I'm talking about and where this distrust has truly been sown, I'm going to go ahead and refer to some of the older lore really quickly. Lore that isn't truly ancient, but it's from a few years ago. First, we have to look at what things were like back in the season of the Splicer, before Witch Queen and after Beyond Light. When a former foe was invited to the city in the form of the House of Light, we saw a taste of the distrust that had been brewing within the citizenry. In this time, there were some calls from citizens to evict the House of Light, given that they previously had been the aggressors. Granted, the citizens did not universally do this, but a sizable enough number of them rallied to the divisive and xenophobic calls of Lakshmi II, whose rhetoric and beliefs would force the citizens to be even less trusting of those that were sincerely there to help, but who were also an other that the citizens were not willing to trust. Several citizens even attacked and murdered some of the Eliksni refugees, as we saw in the lore tab for the Shattered Cipher machine gun and the Reese Walker shotgun. The supposedly corrupted nature of the Guardians who were using the powers of stasis was also put on prime display here, as the people of the city were unwilling to trust the one hunter who came to the aid of an Eliksni refugee in the Reese Walker lore tab. It's also worth remembering that we should consider the Eliksni as members of the city as well, and so it brings me no pleasure to state that even the Eliksni sat there and saw this as something to be distrustful of. In this one instance, the Eliksni refugee being saved by the Guardian using stasis saw the Guardian wielding stasis and fled. So nobody really trusts the Guardians on those fronts of things. Whilst the leadership elements of the House of Light, such as Mithrax and Aido, have certainly come around to the idea, I don't think the general citizenry has come around to the idea regardless of whether they're awoken, human, exo, or Eliksni. And as a result, I think it's worth keeping that in mind. Stasis has been a major point of contention. It has also forced everyone within the Lost City to accept a very simple fact. There is a reality now that for some citizens, Guardians are no longer seen as protectors, they are seen as enforcers. And of course, this was not helped with the emergence of the Lucent Hive. Back in Witch Queen, we saw how some citizens lost faith in the Guardians and the Traveler completely thanks to the Hoarfrost Z exotic, which featured an old Haka exile in the employ of Spider who was voicing his grievances whilst working for him. This was his form of protest against the Traveler and the status quo. The man, who was simply identified as Alexi, stated that the Traveler blessed the few at the expense of the many, and he wondered if it had always meant to bless the Hive with ghosts. It's clear that the distrust is immense and present all the time. That one account is anecdotal, but it shows how some citizens can think, and it also shows that there's a clear lack of trust between the citizenry and the Vanguard, given that they're supposedly standing by and saying all of this is okay. Most of all though, I think it's worth remembering what happened in Lightfall. The Guardians allied themselves with a coalition of forces that was mighty, but to many citizens might have been questionable. The Awoken were surely steadfast allies and were the calmest part of the entire coalition for some citizens, but the allies of the House of Light in the Eliksni and Keitel's ascendancy from the Cabal of Toro Battle, they most certainly were not welcome in all houses. A full alien coalition was formed, and it was powerful. Certainly. But it still wasn't enough to prevent the Warmind Rasputin from needing to be sacrificed in order to prevent Xivu-Arath's forces from making a beachhead. Before the Black Fleet even arrived, we had made enormous sacrifices as a people, and at the end of it all, it was a Guardian who failed the Lost City, and for that matter the people of Neomuna, in their moment of need. More specifically, that guardian that failed was us in the moment where we failed to shoot our own ghost. Now, as the traveler lies in a state of dormancy and our greatest enemy stands all but victorious, it's not hard to imagine that the mood of the citizenry is at an all-time low. Trust is hard to come by these days. It will take a remarkable effort to regain the trust of the people of the lost city completely. They need to know that they can rely on their protectors, and with one of them literally becoming the enemy with the aid of many others, the rumors of Eris's dark transformations and the bargain struck with the Witch Queen floating around the city in Vannet, it's not hard to see how we're approaching a bit of a breaking point. And, as I always like to mention, in the chaos, suddenly for others there is an opportunity. When the city seems to present disunity, there are those that might be all too happy to offer assistance of some kind out in the wilds, if Lysander still cries out from the shadows. I don't think we're at the state where people are looking to split from the city itself, but every time tension brews, I'm always left to wonder who benefits from that opportunity, and there are two answers that have been persistently coming up in my head. The first was Savathun back in the days before she was killed, and perhaps she even is still benefiting. And the other is, without a doubt, Lysander, who will always benefit whenever the city starts to fall. If he still exists. Who knows if he's still out there. But that's all from me for now. Thank you very much for watching. If you enjoyed the video, go ahead and leave a like, and if you have your own thoughts, leave them down below in the comments section. If you want to stay caught up on Destiny's story, go ahead and hit subscribe and the bell next to subscribe to turn on those email notifications. But as per usual, know that your viewership as always is quite enough for me, and that in the meantime, my name is Bife. Per Audacia ad Astra. I'll see you, Starside.